All right, once again, GM Slick DZ out the Heezy. You already know what it is. So I'm here to give you another tale. But first, I want you to click that subscribe button. You know what I mean? Hit that notification for the bells and all that stuff too. You know what I mean? So we're going to get it popping like this. All right, so I got another Netflix film for you. It's called John Henry. Before I give you that, though, I'm going to give you the backstory of the real John Henry. You know what I'm saying? Get you up to speed, you know what I mean? And get you to those details before we get into the Netflix version of the movie. So basically, in the fairy tales and the history of John Henry, he was basically a free slave who had ridiculous amount of strength. Some people were saying he was 7'5" or whatever, but honestly, he was probably my height, like 5'11", but he had ridiculous amount of power. He went to work for a certain white philanthropist that, you know, had the ability to work on railroads and things of that nature. So he hires John Henry to take hold of that position. But first, he had to make sure that he was good enough to be able to put spikes in the road. So after John Henry convinced this guy that he could thrust a single strike to make a spike, then he started working for him doing the railroads and all that positions. John Henry worked for the benefit of his people and for the help of his family, and also to keep black and white relations together to, you know, try to accomplish a goal, a real goal in mind. So after they worked on these railroads and things for months, this steam engine comes through and says he could take everybody's jobs with the strength of just having a steam engine. So people were pretty much going to be out of jobs at this point. So convinced of his strength, John Henry placed a bet that said he could work faster than any steam engine and had the people behind him to let know that this could take place. They worked as hard as they could, and eventually John Henry proved the steam engine man right, that he could work through a steam engine and on top of that work through a tunnel. So there you go. So some people say he died after building past the steam engine. Other people say he didn't. But that's pretty much the logistics of the John Henry folktale, you know, the American hero, things of that nature. So now we're going to start talking about the John Henry Netflix movie. Yeah, so here's the premise for that. A reformed LA gang member upends the peaceful new life when he steps in to protect two young immigrants from his former violent leader. Word. Just off the description alone, I don't know what to make of this movie. I'm just like, okay, let's just roll with it, I guess. All right, so it's a Netflix Films, but it's sponsored by Saban Films. You know what I'm saying? Saban Films. What the fuck are they trying to bring back, Power Rangers or some shit? I mean, like, really? So we go from this one scene where he's a young man and his father's giving some, parenting advice, to the next scene where he's sitting around the table with a bunch of gang members. Like, really? So now we go about 15 years in the future. We see an older John Henry, and from the back of his head, you know it's Terry Crews. And from this shot alone, as you can see, the hammer indicating that, yeah, this is really supposed to be the real John Henry. Okay. I won't show the graphic nature of the scene or whatever because that's animal cruelty and I ain't about that. But bottom line is some guy was driving and he was swerving out the road and he ended up hitting John Henry's dog, killing him. And I'm not even gonna lie, this asshole is not apologetic or nothing. As a matter of fact, he's like, yo, why don't you get your dog out the street? And then to make matters worse, he pulls out a gun and points it at John Henry asking him what he want to do. It was so disrespectful. All he cared about was his dog, man. It was like, really? Like, that's how people doing in Compton? That's how they wilding out in the hood, in the streets? So then we hop in the scene with these gang members. They probably do all types of drug trafficking and things of that nature. They'd have some girls in the background, so they definitely soliciting females and things of that nature. But bottom line is, these goofy motherfuckers is always wearing white tracksuits. I'm like, really? Can you be any more obvious? So then most of these girls are obviously strung out, except for the one in the red dress. She happens to be somebody's sister and a big part of this movie. So these guys come in and apparently a shootout breaks out at this point. The one with the mask on with the beige coat is the guy's sister. The one on to the left, or the one with the black coat on, is the foster parent that's raising both of them. Now it's pretty much a bloodbath at this point, and I don't really condone violence, but this one scene had me dying laughing. I'm not even going to front. Watch when she greets her brother, yo. It's like, watch when he gets up. He's like, ooh, just falls out. When this guy just sits up to shoot and it just flops back on the ground after he's been shot like multiple times, I'm like, really? Priceless. So basically they're running at this point. They get away from this cop and they both split up and get lost in separate directions. So she's hiding under the steps of a porch or whatever, and it just happens to be John Henry's porch. So John Henry knows she's hiding there at this point. The police come through and try to inspect things, but John Henry tells him that nobody's been around here and all that. So John Henry really has no reason to care for this girl other than the fact that he's just a good guy. And, you know, the consequence of that, he's kind of putting himself and his father in danger. So it's like, what's really going on? So here enters his father. You know what I'm saying? He's funny. He has a lot of dick jokes for whatever reason, because he sells himself the man back in the day. The thing they did that John Henry didn't know is that he's actually able to speak fluent Spanish, which he's able to talk to the girl about. So here's your love interest part of the story. He goes to the store to get this girl, I guess, some tampons or something. But he ends up meeting up with this girl that he hasn't seen since like high school. So they get to talking and rapping and they're all cool or whatever. All right, so the guy that ran over John Henry's dog early in the movie, he's part of this white tracksuit gang or whatever. And that's pretty much what his influence is. You know, not to drag on forever about this stuff, but I mean, you know you want to get to the real villain. You want to get to who's cool, who's the guy behind all these dumbass white tracksuits and stuff like that. So I'm going to give you the info. There you go. Our main protagonist, Ludacris. Yeah. So the backstory is Ludacris is actually John Henry's cousin. Like back in the day when John Henry was trying to get out the game and his cousin wouldn't let him, and they was telling him to use this gun to use on somebody, and then by accident they were trying to wrestle the gun out of each other's hands, and Ludacris gets shot in the face, but he gets shot on the side. So then he has this I'll show you the thing. He has this metal plate on the side of his face, and for some reason he's obsessed with flamethrowers and he just doesn't want to use guns on anybody. Yeah, so got an awesome cameo from DJ Quick, because DJ Quick happened to do some of the music in this movie. It's very awesome. Yeah, so DJ Quick did a lot of music for this movie, and trust me when I say this, that is the only awesome thing about this movie. So, you know, to wrap this up, I'm gonna go into the story of Ludacris and his character, man, because this, yeah. So like I told you in the past, he got shot in the face by John Henry by accident, but he wears this metal thing around his side of his face. But this whole fascination with him just burning people alive is like, where did he get this fascination from? Like, he didn't have any scars. He wasn't burnt on the face or anything like that. So that type of, you know, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So nobody could really figure out where Ludacris's whereabouts was except his grandmother. And his own grandmother snitched to John Henry to tell him where he was at. So yeah, that's hilarious. So trust me, this whole scene is hilarious, and it really doesn't add anything to the movie, but it doesn't make any sense. It's just funny. But you notice the guy on the right? Yeah. Now, if you watched Adult Swim back in the day, you'll recognize him as well as I do. You know who it is. That's right, he was Black Jesus. Black Jesus in Adult Swim. Classic. All right, so anyway, back to Ludacris. So basically, he grows up and becomes the king of the neighborhood, or the king of the streets, or the king of these white tracksuit wearing motherfuckers. And it's like, yo, just look at him. Look at him. First off, when you have something happen like that, an accident where it takes place where a gun is getting shot in your mouth, 9 times out of 10, the wiring and stuff like that goes on the inside of your mouth, not the outside. And he ends up getting a gold-plated ring attached around like a fucking gold-plated sideburn or something like that. I'm like, what is this? Like, seriously? It looks like he has the Avengers Endgame Thanos glove on his fucking face. I'm like, seriously, like you could really put the rhinestones in each part of it. You know what I'm saying? Got little Egyptian statues on the side of this. I'm like, what is going on here? So, you know, Luda got an easy check. I mean, he had to say much in this movie, so I guess no harm done. But, so basically, it's a hood movie with John Henry. It has nothing to do with the American folk hero we all grew up on. And, you know, the only thing John Henry's really trying to do is get this girl out of her situation, but actually puts himself and his father in danger. And, you know what I mean? I don't know what to make of it. I guess give it a thumbs up, thumbs down. I mean, I didn't really tell the whole movie, but basically you've seen enough of it to already know what it is. But John Henry, yeah. So once again, subscribe to the channel, click that notification button. You already know what it is. GM Slick Deezy out the Heezy, Mr. Big.